Not only is this a fabulous way to use up your sourdough discard, but making your tortillas at home is actually extremely easy and it's gonna save you a ton of money. Especially when you're making sourdough tortillas, not only do you get to save money, but you're going to be increasing your gut health because we have the magic of the sourdough. And in this recipe, we're going to be doing a full culture or long ferment. But I will also be sharing with you the way if you want to have these in a hurry, you can still have them if you don't plan ahead. But I highly recommend planning ahead so that you get the full benefit of the culture and the full flavor profile and depth. So up first we have our flour. This is just unbleached organic all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour, you can use whole wheat, you can use ancient grain, you can use fresh ground, you can use any type of flour that you want. I do get this flour, and this video is sponsored by Azure Standard. This is their Azure brand of the all-purpose organic unbleached flour. And I just buy this baby in like the 50-pound bags. So if you have a scale, we will be measuring this. If not, you can simply do where we're scooping this in here, and then we're gonna level it with a spoon for 2 cups of flour. And I have at the blog post, so beneath this video in the video description, there will be a link if you want to get the printable version of the recipe, and I have it for you both by weight in grams as well as by volume. So up next, we have 2 heaping teaspoons of baking powder. There we go. And then next we have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to give that a quick combine of our dry ingredients. So we're going to measure out first, for those of you who are doing it by volume if you don't have a scale. We need 2/3 cup of sourdough starter. Now you're going to notice with the sourdough tortillas that we're not adding any fat to this recipe in the ingredients. A lot of times if you're doing tortillas without the sourdough starter, sometimes you'll see an incorporation of some fat in, but you don't need it when you are doing the sourdough tortillas. So now we're adding our 5th ingredient, which is a 1/4 cup of water. Now, if you've ever looked at the ingredients in store-bought tortillas, oftentimes you're going to see a lot more ingredients because they're using preservatives. Most of the time they're using seed oils and a lot of different ingredients that I don't necessarily want in my body. Plus you pay like between $4 and $5 for a small package of tortillas, and you can make them for a fraction of that price at home. So now that we've got all of our ingredients in our bowl, we're going to simply go ahead and combine these together. Now, if you just have a spatula or big spoon, that's totally fine. I love using a dough whisk just because it makes incorporating the starter and the wet with the dry ingredients a lot easier. Okay, so after it's kind of shaggy and mostly combined, then I just take my fingers, my hands, I'm just going to kind of work this together just a little bit until it starts to come into one cohesive dough ball. Now, if it still feels a little bit dry, then just go ahead and sprinkle in a little bit extra water. And so I've kind of got a few little bottom pieces here that are feeling, you can see here, these ones are a little bit dry. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a sprinkle of water to get this to come all the way together. Okay, so this is pretty much together. So I'm not really looking to develop the gluten in this by doing a full knead. I'm just gonna make sure that everything is incorporated here and add just a little bit, slight amount of water. I've got a few little dry spots there. There we go. Now that's coming together really nice. I'm gonna put this back in the bowl and we're gonna cover this with a damp tea towel because I don't want it to dry out. Now this I'm just gonna let ferment at room temperature for about 5 to 8 hours, which is considered a long ferment. And that means that all of the flour that I just incorporated will have a chance to fully culture. But if you wanted to make this up and you didn't have the time to do a long ferment, you simply wanna let it sit and rest for about 30 minutes before you go ahead and begin to roll out your tortillas. And the reason for that is we need the dough to relax. If you don't let it rest for at least 30 minutes before you try to roll out your tortillas, you're gonna find that the dough is not responding to rolling and it just kind of shrinks back and you're not gonna be able to get that dough rolled out into a nice flat tortilla. So let it rest for 30 minutes if you're pressed for time. Otherwise, to take full benefit of fermented cultured sourdough, let it sit for 5 to 8 hours at room temp. Now it is time to form and make our tortillas. So for this recipe, we're gonna divide our dough into 6 dough balls, and that's gonna give us 6 tortillas. So feel free to double this recipe if you wanna have more tortillas on hand. This makes approximately 6 8-inch tortillas, which if you have not gotten on pre-order yet, the new updated version that has been expanded with over 20 plus new recipes and some brand new sections of home and handmade. We'll have the link on that. It officially releases on May 6, 2025. So you can snag the pre-order and get all of the fun bonuses with that. And this is on page 89. And you can see there the picture of making them, but we're gonna make them here together right now. So we're gonna divide our dough out. Now, if you wanted them to be all exact, you could weigh your dough and then divide it by 6, but I usually don't roll that way. We're just gonna go ahead and cut these and eyeball into our 6 different pieces. So after you have halved this, then I'm just gonna go ahead and put these into 1/3 portions. And I'll kind of eyeball, like, this one's a little bit on the smaller side, this one's a little big, so we'll just take a small portion of dough, pop that there. There we go. So we're gonna take our first one here and just kind of form it into a ball. And as you can see, this is not sticking to my hands or the countertop, so I do not put down any additional flour. If you were finding that they were slightly sticky, you could put down a little bit extra flour, or you can even take a little bit of olive oil and smear it on the countertop, and that will help it not stick as well. But I don't need to do either of that today because these are going good. So I like to take them into a ball, and then I just use the palm of my hand to flatten these out. I have tried different tortilla presses and I have never found a tortilla press that has actually pressed them thin enough. I just get frustrated with them. So if you have an awesome and amazing tortilla press that actually works and gets them flat, please do let me know in the comments beneath this video. But I have just found my hands and a rolling pin work just fine. So I like to just kind of get it down into a circle with the palm of my hand, and then we're gonna finish rolling it out with our rolling pin. So I just press and roll out, and then I do turn it 1/4 of a turn each time. That just helps so that you have even pressure and it keeps it a little bit more of a circle form, and also lets you know if it's starting to stick so you can make adjustments before you have rolled the whole thing out and then the whole thing sticks to the countertop. So obviously if you wanted these to be larger tortillas, then you would just divide that dough ball into 4 instead of 6. But here we go. So this is ready to go into our preheated cast iron pan. So ideally it should be about 2 minutes on each side. Your first tortilla is always kind of like that first pancake. You may have to increase or decrease your heat a little bit. We're starting to get some nice browning action on there. I'm gonna let that go just a little bit longer before we flip it over. All right, there we go. So as you're cooking each one of them, I like to just cover it with a tea towel to help keep them warm. And then we're gonna go right on to the next one. So here are our 6 5-ingredient tortillas. Now, I like to call these rustic tortillas. You will notice at the end, you probably will start to roll them a little bit more round, but the rustic ones eat just as well as the more round tortillas. And I have to say, if you have never had the pleasure of homemade tortillas fresh off the cast iron skillet, oh my friend, you are missing out. They are so good. Half the time I end up eating the first one without any toppings or any taco meat at all, just as a piece of bread. They're worth it. As always, there is a printable version of this recipe over on my website. In the video description, you can go ahead and grab that. And also catch the homemade cultured buttermilk ranch dressing because almost everything tastes better with ranch.